in themselves a really good sort of cult following. It's made up of three people. They're the nucleus of the band: Richard Kirk, Stephen Mallender and Chris Watson. Phil Sutcliffe met up with these three guys who call themselves Cabaret Voltaire the other day, and you can hear that little chat following this, which is a track from their album which is called Red Mecca. This is A Touch of Evil.
That's A Touch of Evil from Cabaret Voltaire's new album, Red Mecca. Now that title, I believe, comes from an Orson Welles movie. What's the significance of that, Chris?
We sort of just happened to, while we were recording one afternoon, as usual, we have the television running, and it just came up out of the blue, the film, and we all immediately sat down and were totally intrigued by it. It was sort of a heavily suggestive film, and it invoked a lot of sort of smoky, sleazy emotions that we found really fascinating. Sort of regards sort of the police corruption that was inherent throughout the film, and the way in which it worked and people's reactions to things. It was just the whole aura of it that we found fascinating.
Orson Welles plays some kind of crooked lawman in this, does he?
Yeah, really well. This completely gross figure with sort of a 3 days growth and sort of a huge suit and things, just going around intimidating people and ultimately failing, which was really good, set within the context of the film and where it was set.
Well, while on the subject of names, Red Mecca, what's that about? Is it the Red Republic of South Yorkshire, or...?
There's some people have thought of that. Some people have thought, an extension of some. Think we've discovered religion again. Think we've gone Islam or something. I think some people are a little bit off-put by it. I think some people may be intimidated by it. Some people find it amusing. I mean, because there's the Mecca dance hall thing in it as well, and there's all sorts in there. It's just left for people, but it's seems to have been quite provocative, really.
I think it worked in the sort of almost like the classic surrealist sense, in that two apparently unrelated words coming together took on an entirely different meaning, which for us was great, because everybody interprets it in a different way.
Do you feel that you are obscure?
We haven't gone out to create an image, so people tend to think that everything we do is really sort of depressing and grey. I mean, because we come from Sheffield, the industrial sort of city and things like that. But I mean, the music's always been rhythmic, and we all listen to a lot of dance music, and we're all influenced by that.
And it's something again that people can associate with. I mean, everybody likes to dance, I presume.
Sure, but why won't you have anything to do with tunes?
We find it impossible to play tunes, because that's not the way that we've sort of grown up. We've not sat down and learnt the instruments in a traditional sense. Therefore, we rely on the rhythm.
We do write tunes. It's just they're all a maximum of 4 notes, But tunes are in there somewhere, to a certain degree.
I mean, our first instruments were tape recorders and 1 or 2 sort of homemade synthesizers. It only became, as things gradually developed, and when we sort of acquired traditional instruments, it became viable to actually take those out and put on performances and shows. We've never really seen ourselves as a group in the traditional sense, more an organisation.
Now, suddenly, after having relatively few releases in past years, as you built up, this year you seem to be virtually flooding the market with Cabaret Voltaire. How many records do you sell? Your last album, the live album, whatever?
In England, I think somewhere around 15,000 plus, I don't know, I'm not too sure.
You can sell, say, 12, 15, 20,000 records in this country, but you're also selling 7,000 records, say, in America, and 4,000 in Japan or whatever, so it's a cumulative effect, really.
I think you've, for a long time, had an interest in what's called, I think, found noises, isn't it?
We can get the spark for a particular piece of music, either from a lyric which one of us will write, or somebody will come along to the studio one day with a tape that, they could have recorded in the street, or it's something that they've done in the studio, and say, hey, listen to this. And if we find something interesting in that, and we use that as a tool for building up the piece.
Another of the interesting things about Cabaret Voltaire that must keep watchers on their toes is that you keep on appearing on different labels. Earlier this year, a Belgian label called Crepuscule was added to the list with the single called Sluggin' for Jesus. Sluggin' for Jesus, a Cabaret Voltaire single released on Crepuscule Records earlier this year. Richard, that voice murmuring away there in the background, that sounds like one of your found sounds. Who is he?
It's a person called Dr. Eugene Scott, who had his own TV programme in America, religious TV. And when we were over there last year, he was when we used to get in after playing, he used to be on the TV, just sort of ranting away and appealing for money.
and it was just one of those things we had to record. And then when we got back, we eventually, sort of used him as the main vocal for this piece. And one phrase that really took our fancy was "slugging for Jesus," so we decided to use that. I mean, it's so strange to us out there to see things like that. I mean, you just don't get anything like that on English TV. So, I mean, it was quite peculiar.
It seemed interesting to us that the entire time he was on the air, the sole justification for him being on the air was to ask for more money via donations in order to keep his airtime going. There was no other conclusion apart from keeping the station running, and he'd just sit there and just sort of stare into the camera and just ask for money, and he'd sort of say, like a quote from the record, "I don't want any tips tonight, nothing under $100." And he wouldn't accept anything under $100 that people wrote in.
And people would phone in and actually, they would give him money. Like the phones would be going all the time.
$15,000 just to keep him going.
He's now in prison.
We think.
Oh, I was going to say it sounded like a steady job, but it hasn't proved so.
Strange hours, though. It was always the middle of the night.
That sounds rather similar to the way Eno and Byrne put together some of the tracks on My Life in the Bush of Ghosts, with a priest babbling away under or over the music.
It was just some remarkably similar associations with that LP and Slugging for Jesus, but I think we were in total honesty, we actually did that without the foreknowledge of that LP. I think it's a case of the old sort of safety pin theory, two sort of unrelated people working on a similar theme. I mean, it does crop up occasionally.
From what I've read, they have actually been doing that for a while. It's done over a period, but we in actual fact recorded and brought out the Slugging for Jesus. I think came out before their album, but they've been working on it a long time.
I mean, even prior to that, there was the whole Gazuki LP, which used a similar thing. He was sort of found radio sources a lot on that, which goes to show there's only been ever one good idea in rock and roll.
Right, well, we're going to close with your next single, Jazz the Glass, which isn't on the Red Maker album. It should be out next month, I gather. Jazz the Glass is a nice phrase. What does it mean?
It's a 60s surfing term, the glass being the surf, to jazz it, to go out and surf it, so to jazz the glass is to go out and surf.
I see.
If people hear that, then they'll know. If no one heard me say it, then they'll have to think about it for a bit longer.